We need you to become a member of Twin Cities Public Television. After all, without your membership support, without your calling us and letting us know how important Doctor Who is to you, well, we simply have no idea, and we have no ability to pay for this programming. So we need to ask you right now to call us at 645-8571 and become a member of Twin Cities Public Television. This is a public television station, no commercials, no other way of acquiring this program than through your support. That's why it's so crucial that we hear from you tonight. And one of the ways we gauge the popularity of a program and the interest that viewers have in it is through the response that we have during these membership drives. So when we hear from you, we know that this programming is important to you. And when you pledge your dollar support, we know it's even more important. Give us a call. And now back to Doctor Who.
If you prefer, mail your pledge to KTCA TV, Post Office Box 8228, St. Paul, Minnesota, 55108 8228.
So I have a confession to make. I don't try to make each of these videos between 2.5 and 3 hours long. I know you might think I do, but I really don't. And the reason why some of these get long is because there's so much to talk about with these stories, with these releases, and also my memories that kind of come along with watching them on the air, or interactions I've had with people who were in it or worked on it or whatever else. And I just want to remind folks that if you watch some of the longer ones, remember, they're all chaptered in YouTube. So don't think that you have to sit through the whole thing. I mean, you can see exactly in the description, like the timestamp, you click on it, it'll take you to where you need to go. And I'm telling you that because there is a lot of great information in these videos, I think. And but I also want to make sure you understand too that I understand that not all videos need to be 2.5 to 3 hours, and that sometimes you're just going to pick up a story, find it interesting, and I want to talk about its release, and it's just going to be a story that, you know, just simply got released and nothing more. And that there's some information around it, and that is just fine. But you know what I think I'm going to find out more is that you start to uncover stuff when you research. You start to remember stuff about when you watched it. And why that's important is because there you end up being able to really talk about these releases in a way that maybe not everyone knows about certain aspects of it. And I hope that in the case of Vengeance on Varos, which is what we're going to be talking about today, I hope that you find that to be the case. And my thought is, whether they're 3 hours long or 15 minutes long, I hope that you walk away from these videos and thinking, you know, these are pretty good, that I'm learning something, and kind of, like we always say, kind of get that nostalgia going for you as well. Because one of the things that I really love to read, and I've said this every video, is I love to read what you have to say about your memories of picking up this video in whatever store you got it from, however you got it, if it was in the UK or US, watching it on transmission. Those are the things, because what we're doing is that we are creating this kind of written history around these stories, a kind of a time capsule of what we've experienced. So I hope that you continue doing that. And you know, I don't think Vengeance on Varos is going to be a 3-hour video, but I hope it's a good one all the same. It's not one that I was expecting to do. I was in no hurry to pick out yet another season 22 story. I was in no hurry to pick out yet another 1993 30th anniversary story. But there was a reason why I decided that I wanted to do this one, and we'll get into that. But before we go any further, I also want to remind people, if I get anything wrong here, or you want to send me a note about anything, please go ahead, send me a note at the email address below here, because this is something that really, I love to hear from you. I love to hear from you. And sometimes you all might send me a note about, well, you didn't quite get this right. And I appreciate that. Everyone so far has been extraordinarily polite about it, and just kind of, because I think you all are understanding what I'm trying to do here, and you want to be a part of it as well. So, send me an email, you can put your comments in YouTube, all the normal stuff, and I hope you do so, because I love that sort of thing. And then, of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to my channel. I would really like it. Subscribe and like this video, because one of the things that I want to do is grow this channel. And growing this channel means getting it into the algorithm that people are watching this and enjoying it. So if you subscribe, if you like the video, all that means is that it's just going to help me, and more content will be created. And then, as I always say too, please consider to subscribe to my Patreon. The Patreon is something that I absolutely need, because this video series has taken a turn that I didn't expect to see happen when I started this with Tomb of the Cybermen in 2021. Because now one of the things I do, and this is where so much of the donations through Patreon go, is to buy old off-air recordings of Doctor Who and on VHS from anywhere I can get them. And that's the thing that I find really exciting, is that you, and people might be like, well, why are you going to do that? What's the difference? You'd be surprised. The difference is that there is so many unique, like, local television personality sort of moments in these recordings. It's a term that you see on YouTube all the time called, like, lost media. And that's what this is. This is lost media. Maybe you don't even know it exists. Or maybe I play something from your neighborhood, from your city, that you're like, oh, I remember that. And sometimes I'm going to try to kind of fit this into the videos, for videos and stories that we've already covered. For example, I found this on some videotapes that I bought through Patreon subscriptions that I think that you might find enjoyable. We already did a video about the 5 Doctors, but I bought a whole bunch of tapes from recordings from WTTW, I believe in probably 1987 or so. And before they aired the 5 Doctors for a special presentation, it seemed like a summer-long kind of theme of all the Doctors. They played the 5 Doctors, and before the 5 Doctors aired, you get this.
You're watching WTTW Channel 11 in Chicago.
It's a summer-long festival of some of the greatest Doctor Who adventures. Perhaps you have trouble deciding which of the Doctors is your favorite. Maybe you just love them all. Well, tonight, you get to enjoy 5 of them in one sitting in an installment appropriately titled The 5 Doctors. A doctor here, a doctor there. The doctor seems to be everywhere.
One day, I shall come back.
So this is why I really would like to ask more people to subscribe, and you have access to all sorts of things on the channel, and we don't just do Doctor Who videos as well. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of say that, but let's talk about Vengeance on Varos. So on October 25th, 2025, Nabil Shaban had passed away. And, a very talented actor who had done a number of things. In our Doctor Who world, we know him very well for playing Syl, that started in the story Vengeance on Varos. He played Syl. You know, Syl was a villain. And in a sense, he was a villain in every possible sense of the way. But, you know, Syl was, in my opinion, Syl was never over the top. He was over the top, but it looked, you know, it seemed like that character needed to be over the top. And Nabil played him so well and embodied that character so well. He was basically the villain that you don't ever want to see him get his comeuppance. So if you do see him get his comeuppance, it's going to be in sort of you know, take him away sort of thing. You'd never want to see Syl be killed or hurt even, because he's just the way that Nabil played him was basically the villain you love to hate. And I think that's much more to the gifts of Nabil than it is towards the script, which fleshed him out pretty well as well. The interesting thing is, so in October 2025, or probably November actually, I did a rewatch of Vengeance on Varos. It's sort of a tribute to Nabil. And the thing is that I'm not going to watch Mindwarp. I think I may have said before, to me, Mindwarp is probably my least favorite story of Doctor Who. And after rewatching Vengeance on Varos, I don't think this is much better. But that's just me, you know. And I know a lot of people who love it. You know, and I'm not here to critique the stories. It just was like, you know, but I think Vengeance on Varos is better than Mindwarp. And I'm just going to say, because people might be like, why wouldn't you like Mindwarp? I understand why the Doctor acted the way he did in the story. I just don't like watching that. It's heartbreaking. And yet, you know, the hypocrite in me, which really exists in Doctor Who quite a bit, I was also very upset that part 14 of Trial of a Time Lord undid Perry's demise.
All charges against you are dismissed, Doctor. We owe you an immense debt of gratitude, which I can partly repay by telling you that the young woman, Miss Perpigillion Brown, is alive and well and living as a warrior queen with King Yrcanos.
And you know, but because that part, even though I didn't like it, I didn't like what happened to her. It was done very well and very, very frightening, quite frankly. But that's how it goes, and it is what it is. It's funny as a kid. One of the things that I did not notice all that much was the violence in this story and Doctor Who in general. And when I got involved in stuff like the Club, the Whoniversity, and other things, that was the big news. That was what was being reported. Same with Doctor Who Fan Club of America and other things. And you know, I wasn't getting DWM or DWB at that point, but it's interesting because as a kid, the Doctor having that battle right by that acid bath and stuff, nothing really fazed me about it, to be honest. Maybe I'm a cold-hearted kid, I don't know. And I also do wonder, you know, I never liked doing this sort of thing. I never like being like, well, because I'm American, maybe the violence just didn't affect me as much. But there is something about that like, well, why didn't that give me some sort of pause for thought? It does now. When I watch it, I'm like, ooh, I don't know about that. But the thing about that also is, well, let's talk about that acid bath scene real quick. It is very clear the Doctor does not push anyone into it. The Doctor is defending himself. I mean, who wouldn't? You know, and even defending himself doesn't mean that he pushed him in. Someone in the acid bath, which that's not how acid baths work, by the way, pulled him into this other guy into the acid bath. what I don't like is, once again, and I mentioned this in the Two Doctors video, the Doctor has this, Bondian sort of, quip.
Forgive me if I don't join you.
It is kind of like, how do you end a scene like that? I mean, I think, in my mind, to kind of really talk about the violence that was, if the Doctor would have just sat there just like for just a second, just kind of reflecting on what just happened. Once again, it wasn't his fault, but just being horrified by what transpired, because whether they're trying to kill him or not, the way I see the Doctor is that that's still life. That's still a Varos, person from Varos, a being, and that should be enough to, at least give him pause for like, ugh, this is, it's horrible, and then run off because he needs to get away. That's just my opinion. The other violence in it is just what it is. So it's funny because you can have Perry be turned into a bird or whatever she was, and that doesn't really bother me so much, maybe because I know that she is going to be turned back. Even when I watched it the first time, I knew she was going to be turned back. But seeing her get, slapped, I didn't like that at all. Because maybe because that's just too real. And, and maybe you could argue, not every day you run into an acid bath, and I hope you never do. But, that slap, and it looked like it hurt, and obviously it's all acting. I understand that. I get it. But I don't like that. Just like, once again, you're going to hear me probably talk about this every time we talk about Colin's stuff, is the strangling of Perry in the Twin Dilemma. I don't like that. That's something I will probably never be able... You'll never be able to talk me out of that. But nevertheless, some of the things I actually found kind of funny about it, I never noticed before. And I actually, out of all these years of having watched Vengeance on Varos, I never really thought about that, is those cars that are in where the punishment zone is, they really do drive at the speed of a turtle, don't they? How can you miss them? It's impossible. Yet they do, and so be it. But wow. Okay, so whatever. So you have that, and I find that funny, but at the same time, isn't that what makes Doctor Who kind of endearing? Because everything about it is actually kind of cool. Perhaps the way that they would shoot it maybe could have made a difference, but at the same time, there's all sorts of reasons why things are shot the way they are in studio, time probably being a big part of it. But that's the thing that I found personally very kind of funny when I rewatched it. And probably the thing that I found the funniest, and I laugh every time, is that Quilliam, who's the scientist guy, or he does the experiments on people, whatever, and he did one on himself, and it kind of it totally disfigured him. And there's a part where the Doctor is hiding in right by Quilliam, and he puts on the mask, that same kind of mask that Quilliam wears, and Quilliam finds him, and he's like, "Who are you?" Well, the Doctor's wearing the mask, but he's still wearing his outfit. And when the Doctor takes off the mask, "Oh, it's you." He knows him right away. What, the costume didn't give him away? Are you kidding me? It's just like, and I laugh every time about it. But what I did try to do is because I'm like, Quilliam must have been in a scene with the Doctor before, but I don't think so, actually, because I did kind of a quick search to see. But at the same time, he clearly knew who the Doctor was, and he clearly had seen the costume before. I find that very funny. Once again, I also find it endearing. Please know, I'm not talking about this stuff as, like, I think it's stupid and everything. No, I find that stuff endearing, and that's what I love about this show. But at the end of it all, what really ties Vengeance on Varos together to me more than, say, in Mindwarp is Syl. Syl is great. Syl is like the kind of the purpose of that show, and also really stand out for all of this, and I love it. And I think he is fantastic. I think Nabil is absolutely fantastic in this. So I want to point something out to you. when season 22 aired, I didn't really know how the season was going to go per se, because for me, information was not around. And so I didn't have DWM, DWB. I think I mentioned in the Two Doctors video that I knew about that story because there was a novelization that was going to become available for it. And I went into Little Professor Bookstore and I found out about it, and you know, was a nuisance to the guy who ran the bookstore. But so I was really excited to see the Two Doctors. I didn't know anything about even like Attack of the Cybermen or anything else. I certainly didn't know about Revelation of the Daleks. So like Vengeance on Varos, I'm going to tell you a little bit later about when I first really kind of heard about it. But the thing about Vengeance on Varos is when it aired on KTCA, and it aired in '85. And as we talked about before, it got over here pretty quickly after transmission in the UK, which, you know, quickly now is like same day or simultaneously, or now streaming, I guess. But back in 1985, if you get it like 6 to 8 months after it airs, you're doing pretty well. And that's really what it was for us. But when Vengeance on Varos aired, it was pledge season on KTCA, which is very smart. You want to get people to tune in during pledge season, and what's the better way to do it than to have it run new episodes of Doctor Who? And that's exactly what they did. And so that's where some of the video at the start of this video came from, was from that pledge drive when Vengeance on Varos first aired. And the thing about it is, I remember, and the recording that I got this from, and this wasn't my recording back in '85, a woman named Blanche recorded all Doctor Who a few times, different stories a few times. And in 1995, 96, I bought her VHS collection, her off-air VHS collection. I mean, I was even doing it back then. I don't even realize that until now. But I bought her entire VHS collection of Movie Virgin because I was collecting them all in episodic. Even before these, I was getting, you know, tapes from people, as we talked about before, in episodic, from different parts of the country. So I wanted Movie Virgin as well, because I didn't care where I lived. I was going to take up all the space, all available space everywhere I lived, I guess, whether it was my parents or, you know, whatever else. And I've moved these tapes so many times over the years, and I have no problem doing so. But in the recording itself, both pledge drives, after a few minutes, it stops and starts up again. She stops the recording and starts it up again. And I thought to myself, you know, back in the day, I would have been the same way. I don't think I would have stopped my recording, but I would have been annoyed that Doctor Who is being interrupted by this. Even though sometimes they talked some Doctor Who stuff, it was really all about talking about their, you know, pledging and all that stuff. And I thought, yeah, that's, you know, I just want to see the story. Now, isn't it weird? Now, all these years later, what's this going to be, 41 years later, I wish that those were kept, because I'd love to see the whole thing. I'd love to see it all. Not all of it's going to be worthwhile, but see enough of it to see if there's anything that we had missed. And I want to talk to you real fast about the power of Doctor Who in the mid-'80s in the U.S. KTCA, when I talk about KTCA all the time, what I've never mentioned, KTCA was probably one of the biggest public television stations around. Not as big as WGBH in Boston, not as big as some of the other ones on the East Coast, but for being a Midwest station, I even think that they created more new content that went national than actually WTTW in Chicago. And some of the series that were big was Newton's Apple, that was done here in the Twin Cities. Also a series called Live from Off Center was a big one as well. And they did a documentary in the early 90s about this American Revolution called Liberty. I mean, these are big productions, and they're still making big productions to this day. But if you look at the set that they're doing the pledge drive on, and they have a lot of pictures on the wall from television series that they run on Channel 2. One of them is a big photo of Tom Baker as the Doctor. And to me, that says everything about Doctor Who in the 80s. they don't have anything from, say, Masterpiece Theater. They don't have anything from their Noon's Apple or a Live from Off Center or anything else. What they have is, like, they have Big Bird, and then they have Doctor Who, which is actually basically a syndicated program. And I thought, boy, and it never really hit me until when I was getting ready for this video, because, I mean, I watched this stuff a lot, watched it live on the air. And I just thought, wow, that really does tell you about the power of Doctor Who in the 80s. And I thought that was really cool, actually, because that was something that meant that the show is I mean, you would be shocked, and we're going to talk about the broadcast history of KTCA Doctor Who here in a second. And it's going to be kind of, I think, a surprise how much Doctor Who is ran over here. And you'll also see that there's people wearing Doctor Who shirts and stuff. That's because you bring in volunteers to answer the phones. And I've done it a number of times at that place. At that time, it was as a television station just in St. Paul next to the State Fair. Eventually, they moved to this big place called the Telecenter that they built in downtown St. Paul. But the club there was a Doctor Who club there that night. You can take a look on the shirts. It's called the Whovian Elite. And I remember them from the late 80s. I think I knew a few people, and I think they actually, there's Whovian Elite, Rassilon Rowdies, then Mini Unit. I think they all kind of merged together, something like that. Then, of course, the group that I was a part of was the Whoniversity. There's the Celestial Affiliation of Time Lords. There's just a bunch of, 3, 4, 5 separate Doctor Who fan clubs in the Twin Cities. I mean, it really, once again, goes to show how big Doctor Who was. And it's like, what an incredible time capsule. Now, before I bought that movie version collection from Blanche, I had decided that I was just going to be recording Doctor Who off television here in the Twin Cities, since they were all movie version. This was like in '89. I decided I'm going to do this. But because I could, I wanted to record them all on beta, because it's different from VHS. It amused me to do it and record them off air. And so I remember recording Vengeance on Varos on beta. And in fact, I thought that the tape was still somewhere in this house, because I took a picture of it for one of my blog postings with a bunch of other tapes for an article called The Tape Traders. Well, the memory cheats, okay? And the memory cheats in the sense that I looked up that photo, and it's actually Travel Time Lord 1 through 4, but because it was movie version, I labeled it as Mysterious Planet. And it's really interesting, because I can't find that tape anywhere around here. I still think it's around here. I don't think it was taken with all my other beta tapes. But I remember recording all of season 22 on beta. At least most of them. Attack for sure, Vengeance for sure, and there's other ones I recorded as well, which I thought was really interesting, because it was, I know exactly when I did it, because it was in '89, because that's when I got this massive beta machine. I mean, this thing is like, you needed a forklift to bring it into the house. It was so big. It took up so much space. But I think I bought it for like $30 from my friend Roger, because he got it from, I think, Craig, who we talked about before. And it came with a few beta tapes, and then I started to record them off air, the movie versions, that is. And I remember that I never had an issue with the reception, not cable, with the antenna reception of the television stations, until I started recording, and I started noticing kind of that maybe it wasn't as clear as I thought. Maybe it was a little bit of static in there. I laugh at it now, but I would watch it over and over again. It's like, does this look really good for off air? Does this look really good? I mean, I'm a mess. You knew that already. But it was great to get those. And one of the things that I remember recording was the Seeds of Death on beta. because there's an anomaly that I have found that I'd like to share. And this is not a criticism. I almost feel like I should have like a flashing thing saying this is not a criticism. So there's a number of times that Doctor Who aired. I went to Broadcast Who because I wanted to kind of fix it with my memory of everything, of how it all went down with recording some of this stuff. And I went to Broadcast Who, and it doesn't have all of the Doctor Who viewings in it. And I have to once again say, this is not a criticism on Broadcast Who. They're covering the world. It's one of the greatest websites ever. So for them to not have it all just means that they hadn't uncovered it or whatever else. And it's for people like myself. Once I get better information, I need to help them fill in those gaps. So once again, it's not a criticism. But I went to see when that Colin Baker run had started. They really only showed it as basically once or twice, and not in '89, which is when I got my beta machine. So I went in, it's like, okay, it's not there, but I know that's when these were recorded, because you end up getting eventually going through, and then you're going to go through all of Sylvester McCoy eventually on KTCA. And I remember, well, where does Seeds of Death fit in? Because that's Patrick Troughton, and we're talking about Colin Baker. And at first I thought there's something more that Broadcast Who is missing, but that was my own memory kind of failing me. So KTCA Channel 2 had a sister station that all broadcast from the same area, it all broadcast from the same building, and that was KTCI Channel 17. So you had a VHF and you had a UHF channel for the Twin Cities Public Television. So at some point, all throughout the day, KTCI would run weather radar. You turn on the station, and it was just a radar of the Twin Cities, and you would see if a storm's coming. You could watch it just slowly get to you, which as a severe weather watcher as I am, and a tornado chaser as I was, that actually was kind of fun. But then Monday and Wednesdays at like 7 p.m. it would stop, and they would run Doctor Who. And so Monday and Wednesdays for a while they ran all the Hartnells and all the Troughtons. They ran them all the way through, and that was pretty incredible. And I don't know if it's because they thought, we didn't know if Doctor Who was so important to us that they wanted to keep showing it, or if there was something to do with contractually they ended up with another set of these episodes that they could run, and they, maybe they had to fill out the contract one way and this was an easy way for them to do it. I really don't know, but I remember as a kid being really excited about it, and this all kind of correlated with, in 1989, with Polaris Con, that I remember, because that was July, like 1st through 3rd, or 2nd through 4th, or whatever it was. It was certainly over the 4th of July weekend. And I remember that I was on the planning committee, or I'd help out, or we'd be at meetings leading up to the convention, and one would be like on a Wednesday night, and we'd turn it on, and it's the Dalek invasion of Earth. And it would be like, wow, this is kind of cool. It's a Wednesday night, and Doctor Who is being broadcast. I thought that was so fun. And this is kind of going back to what I was talking about earlier with the pledge drive stuff, with Doctor Who being so visible on public television here in the cities, that there was a point, back when it first came over to KTCA Channel 2, they were running Doctor Who Monday through Friday. And then eventually Friday nights, movie version, when Peter Davison started. And then eventually moving to 2 nights a week, Friday and Saturday. I don't remember off the top of my head if it was always the same doctor or different doctor, or Friday and Saturday night. Eventually moved to Saturday morning for a while, where they'd show a story, and then a different show would come on Saturday night. And then, of course, it was this Monday and Wednesday broadcast as well for a short time. The Saturday went away for, really quick. And it just was on a lot. It was absolutely on quite a bit. And for a while, like Doctor Who would air on a Saturday night, and it moved back to a later time slot because they brought in Blake 7, and Blake 7 ran for a while. So, it's just this incredible sort of, constant Doctor Who, which really was grateful for. And I remember when they stopped running it and in 1990, something like that, after Sylvester McCoy, and it didn't go away forever. And I sent them a note wondering if it's going to come back, and they kind of sent me a letter back saying, "Do you realize how much we ran this show?" I mean, they were just kind of, and I read across that letter recently, and I thought, you know what, they're right. I mean, they really did an amazing job running Doctor Who on PBS. And, and at the time, all I could think of was like, why is it not running? Looking back, it's like, boy, we did have it really good. Now, in the UK, as we talked about before, season 22 is 2 45-minute episodes. In the US, when they came over as episodic, I mean, obviously, you get the movie version, which is we got in Minnesota. But in those markets that had episodic, they were 4 25-minute episodes, which we've talked about before. And as you can see on the clock, the electronic clock for Vengeance on Varos that came over to the U.S., it literally says USA version and broken down. And then, as we talked about before, but I'm forever interested in this, is that they have these horrible square font at the beginning of each episode. I mean, it's close, but it's not close enough to be convincing, and so I always find that to be very interesting. I always love that. So now over the course of the last few years, I was able to collect everything for season 22 that is in the 4 episodic form or 4 episode format, which is good. And the thing about that is breaking it up into 4 episodes instead of 2. What you end up having is the episodes break in places where there was not supposed to be a cliffhanger, and that's where you end up with real gems like this.
Yeah. Wake up, Beretta. Come on. Can you walk, Perry? Come on, try.
I thought I could fly.
Yes, well, walking is all that's required for now. Come on, Perry, walk.
Now, of course, that was from the end of part 3 of Vengeance on Varos, and as I've said before, and this is classic to how I operate, when I had the 25-minute episode versions that I got from my friend Mike, he made dubs for me, and those are from WQEX. Remember the one with those episodes with the VJs at the start? I didn't like them, of course, because I wanted the 2 45-minute episode versions. And then when I got the 2 45-minute episode versions, I was like, boy, I really wish I would have kept the 25-minute episode format as well, because I was trying to get a hold of everything, and so I was really wishing I had that, instead of taping over them like I did. And I had asked Mike if he kept them, and he taped over them too, or got rid of them. I mean, that's what happens, right? I was like, oh man, I don't know where I'm going to get these. And I read many years ago that in Australia, that the PAL tapes released, the official tapes released for season 22, that they mistakenly put the 25-minute episode versions onto VHS. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I should check that out. So I didn't buy all of season 22, and it wouldn't have worked out that way anyway, because like something like Revelation of the Daleks was released so long after most of the other season 22 in the UK even, that it wouldn't have made a whole lot of sense. But I on eBay, I ran across the PAL tape in Australia for Vengeance on Varos. So, as one does, I ordered it. I won it. I won the auction. I think that was back before a lot of people were putting on like a buy it now option. So I won it, and it came to me from Australia, and everything looks the same apart from and I used to have the tape, and I can't find it anywhere. But the Australian tapes have like another band underneath with the ratings and stuff like that. And so I look in the back, and the duration isn't any different than on this PAL UK release. But I thought I'll take a look anyway. And so I put in the tape in the VCR and I play it, and sure enough, it's the 2 45-minute episodes. I was very well duped. And, the more I do these videos, the more you're going to hear about how often I've been duped. It's incredible, actually. But anyway, and I was like, well, thank goodness I didn't buy a whole bunch or anything, and just kind of thought to myself, well, that's some kind of urban myth. Didn't happen. I never really thought about it again. So I've done a number of videos, right? And season 22, I've done one other, which is The Two Doctors. And that was coming up nearly 2 years ago now, right? And so I just was perusing through different forums and stuff on rhubarbs, and I don't remember exactly what the context was for rhubarbs. But somebody mentioned the mistake that Roadshow, which was a distributor of Doctor Who VHS in Australia, that they had released The Two Doctors on VHS in the 6-part format opposed to the 3 45-minute episode format. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, here we go again. So wrong, I'm sure. But I did some research. I didn't, not deep research. I just went to see if there's anyone else that could validate this. So I did a little searching, and I went to the TARDIS library website on UK. And this is what they had to say about The Two Doctors' Australian VHS release. Two variants of this release exist. The original 1994 release by Polygram was 3 45-minute episodes, matching the UK video release and the original UK broadcast. However, at some stage, after Polygram lost the Doctor Who distribution rights, for reasons best known to themselves, Roadshow used a different video master. This time using the version originally transmitted in Australia, with the story re-edited into 6 25-minute episodes. The back cover text was not updated between releases, so both versions list the UK running time of 132 minutes, even though the second release is over 10 minutes longer due to the repeated credits reprises in between the 3 extra episodes. Well, that variation has my name written all over it, right? I mean, that's the stuff I live for. So, just so happened I went onto eBay, and I just wanted to see if a version of the Australian VHS was available for me to buy. Mainly because I wanted to see for myself if this was really the case. And I had another reason for it as well. So, let's put it this way. eBay had not only an Australian version of The Two Doctors, it had actually the Roadshow version of The Two Doctors. As you can see here on the back, the Roadshow logo, ABC video, all that good stuff to it as well. It's the right video release, and I play it, and it's...
Come here, Jamie. Look at that.
6 25-minute episodes. It is, in fact, what they said. This is quite the anomaly. Not an anomaly that if you own it, it's going to make you rich, or anyone's going to care. But it's quite the anomaly all the same. And I immediately love it. And, you know, this is the band I'm talking about at the bottom with the ratings and whatnot. Now, the thing about this is I told you I wanted to make sure I had a version of all the 25-minute season 22 episodes. And with this, I do now. Because what happened is that for Attack of the Cybermen, I have recordings from the Master Lionheart tapes. For Vengeance on Varos, as you saw with the electronic clock, I do with that as well. With Mark of the Rani, I have a version from, of all places, ABC in the 4-part episodic version. Now for Time Lash and Revelation of the Daleks, I have it from WQEX. Now you're gonna be like, but if you pay attention to my videos at all, you will remember that you also saw some VJs from WQEX talking about the two Doctors, mainly from episodes. I think it was just like episodes 4 through 6, and that's because I didn't get tapes or recordings from the first few episodes. So now with this, I have the entirety of season 22 in 4 25-minute episode formats, which is kind of cool for me. I'm happy, and I'm sure many of you already have this, or many of you don't care. It probably falls somewhere in between those. But I love this anomaly, and I'm so glad I did so. And you know, I mean, I didn't know about it at the time I made the Two Doctors video, but I'll show you also, the case opens just a little bit differently. But in Australia, they don't have, and yeah, because there's a little bit of play because I wanted to see if it really was what it was. There's no label on the top, and all my Australian releases were like that. It's on the side, like that. I think that's really cool. Now, a couple things that I found very interesting. We're going to get to DWM and DWB in a little bit, but I think I pointed this out before in the 10th Planet video when we're talking about the 1993 video releases. And part of that on the slate for 1993 was, of course, Vengeance on Varos was really pretty much always on the release calendar for 1993. In that, in DWB and nowhere else, it talks about the fact that it actually says Ian Levine holds an extended version of Vengeance on Varos, but it's unlikely that J&T will approach him with a view to borrowing it, despite the success of The Curse of Fenric. What DWB doesn't know, because they are right, Ian Levine would have had the 71 edits to Vengeance on Varos. And I guess that meant that the BBC did not hold on to them even at that point. The thing about it, though, is it has what we call BITC, and that is burnt in time code. And you'll see it on the DVDs and stuff now. And that is something that, especially back in 1993, they're not going to really be able to do much with it at all. So it becomes a question of, like, even if Ian was going to be like, yes, please take these and include them, I can't imagine that they'd be reinserted into the story like Curse of Fenric or Silver Nemesis, because those didn't have any burnt in time codes. This did. Now, what did exist at the time, and still does, is the 1-inch 90-minute studio spool, or one of the studio spools for the story, which is fine, but now you have people who are going to work on this stuff and probably not really charge what they're worth because they want to put these together. Back in 1993, that wasn't going to happen. Also, editing was much harder than it was now. And what I mean by that is not only the fact it's tape-to-tape transfers, but a lot of these people are editing out of their edit suites, out of their homes, like I am with my stuff, and editing software is so easy now and affordable. There was no editing software per se for the BBC, at least probably working on this stuff back then. It was all tape-to-tape stuff, which you're paying not only for the editor, but you're also paying for room time as well. And so, it's just something that wasn't going to work, and it's just kind of funny how, DWB probably had no idea about that, or if they did, they probably didn't really think about that. But the 1-inch spool would not have time code on it, because it's, actually, and you've all seen it, it's actually, really almost more than the master. It's what the master was made from. That's not the first time I ever heard of an extended version of Vengeance on Varos. First time I ever heard of an extended version of Vengeance on Varos comes in the form of a letter that I think a lot of Doctor Who fan clubs back in the day got from the UK. And that's the interesting thing, is like sometimes you would, go to the university mailbox. That was the club that I was a part of. Or university mailbox is your mailbox. And there was a letter from the UK, and it didn't come to me, it came to somebody else. And it was from the Save Doctor Who program that was going on in the UK around this time, led by people like Jeremy Bentham. And the whole purpose of Save Doctor Who campaign was simply this. If the BBC did not want to make any more Doctor Who, that they need to relinquish the rights, they use the word relinquish the rights to somebody who could want to make it. And the money that was being made here was going towards legal fees, because they wanted to get lawyers involved to actually make this happen. Now, back in 1993, when I first read that, I'm like, this is exciting, something's going to happen, bringing Doctor Who back. I read it now, and I kind of burst out laughing. It's like, we're really going to go through this much trouble for for Doctor Who? I mean, I love Doctor Who, but even saying it, it just seems so weird that we're going to push legal pressure. If you're not going to make Doctor Who, then we're going to sue you, or we're going to do whatever until you give it to somebody to make it. Now, what I understand that I totally am missing here as an American is there's that whole thing about the BBC as a public broadcaster. And there's a lot of people who are like, if you're not going to make what the public wants, you're not doing your job. But I'm not so sure that's what the public wanted. I don't, that's the way I see it. But I didn't live through that, at least in the UK. All I know is that it seems kind of silly and kind of like classic over-the-top Doctor Who fans. And before you start writing into me, not all Doctor Who fans are over the top. Please relax. But what drew my attention to the Save Doctor Who campaign was that if you put money in, you would then be put in for a drawing of some pretty incredible stuff, actually. And what they had drawings for was stuff like original scripts, Cybermen helmets, studio floor plans, props, and more. But they say the top prize was a full print of Vengeance on Varos with 25 minutes extra footage never broadcast on TV. Now, obviously, when I read that, I'm like, I would love that. That sounds incredible. Even though, sorry folks, that's not a print, that's a video recording. I have to say that. I just have to get that off my chest. I remember that even at the time reading, like, I don't think you're going to get a 16 millimeter film of Vengeance on Varos extended. You're going to get a copy of something that turned out Ian Levine had. And that's fine. But it's funny that you have all these pretty amazing things, and the top prize is basically a video recording. I don't know if anyone win this. I'm curious. Anyone win any of that? Did it even happen? I would love to know if that happened or not. And if you did, let us know. I'd love to know if you won any of that, because it's very interesting. And I think that apart from like maybe Curse of Fenric at that point when this was all started happening, I don't think I was really aware of like studio footage existing or extended versions existing of Doctor Who stories. This to me is like, as far as we went back, is Curse of Fenric. To me, thinking that Vengeance on Varos had extra footage and extended version or whatever, to me was like, wow, okay, this is really going far back. Who knew what was waiting in store for us, right? Now, over the years, I did end up getting some 71 edits through tape trading. People who, tape trading, we talk about tape trading all the time. And so I ended up getting like recordings of 71 edits to stuff like Kinda and some other ones, which I thought was really cool. I remember America Online. Y'all remember America Online, AOL? And one of their sort of subgroups being about Doctor Who. And I don't know if it was about Doctor Who, episodes of Doctor Who video. Somebody had posted about having a ton of extended versions. I don't think they were calling them 71 edits, extended versions of Doctor Who. Amongst it was like stuff I'd never even heard they had. I mean, there were certain stories that were around that people had heard about extended versions, but I heard about like Logopolis. Never heard that before. And it turns out that even though I don't think there's a 71 edit for it, that there was studio footage that existed for it. And of course, Vengeance on Varos. Years later, I ended up partnering up with Ian Levine, and I mentioned this in Trial of a Time Lord video, that he wanted somebody to reinsert all the cut scenes from the 71 edits and put them into make a whole new episode out of them. Which, I mean, that meant I got 71 edits. So I'm like, absolutely. And Ian would send to me discs upon discs upon discs of all of these 71 edits to stories that he wanted to see done. And that included like stuff as early on as, season 19 stuff all the way to season 26. And it was incredible. It was all these wonderful 71 edits. Sometimes they had burnt-in time codes, but the later stuff especially did not. I worked and had all these wonderful 71 edits that I think they're basically all out now, aren't they? Anyway, at least in some form. But I still treasure them, with all the, countdown clocks and everything else to them. And like sometimes you just get the studio footage. So I had studio footage for pretty much everything at that time, and stuff like Happiness Patrol. I remember getting like hours upon hours of footage. I think I got like 6 DVDs full of just raw footage of Happiness Patrol that went through all of it and created these extended episodes. And it was a lot of fun. But at the end of the day, getting all these 71 edits finally, I never did get Vengeance on Varos from him. I think that's literally the only one I never got from him. And I was always kind of bummed. I always wanted to ask him, but the thing with Ian is that he's not going to just send something your way. There has to be a reason for him to send it to you. And he had a couple other people working on different projects, and someone else took on Varos. And so it's like you could ask him, but it's not, you're not going to necessarily get it. Though I got a couple things out of him, which was even much better than this, and we'll get to that soon. Here's the thing, is that I did have Vengeance on Varos probably fairly early on as the first 71 edit I actually did get. Despite everything I just said, even though I had seen that Save Doctor Who thing in probably like 91, maybe something like that. No. I'm not quite sure actually where I saw the Save Doctor Who thing, because it says 93 when for when the Vengeance on Varos on VHS came out. But I know that we'd seen the Save Doctor Who thing much earlier. It might have been like maybe 90. I am not sure when I saw the Save Doctor Who thing I just talked about, which listed Vengeance on Varos, okay? Because it had to been probably like 90 or something, 1990 or something like that. I'm not 100% sure. But the thing is that even though it felt like many years later, probably couldn't even been that year, went over to Indiana to HoosierCon and had a pretty great time actually. That was probably 91, maybe something like that, and met some people there. And a guy named Rick had he had stuff you could buy tapes off of him, and he made tapes available, and he sent a massive list, once again, and I can't find the list itself, but I found some other things that he had sent along with it. The list itself I can't find, but amongst them was a recording of 71 Edit Vengeance on Varos. And I decided I'm going to get this, I'm going to pay for it. Now, all these years, I kind of thought, oh my gosh, I hate having to pay for stuff. But on here, and I know that people are going to be like, well, you should never have to pay for recordings because that's copyright illegal. And it is. But this guy was charging for T120. He was charging $10 a tape, okay? And up to 2 hours and 40 minutes, he was, for T160, $12 a tape. And for shipments outside the U.S., please add $3 per tape. Now, when you think about it, that means he's buying a tape, he's running his VCR, and he's shipping it to you. And the thing that I find very interesting about that is that when you're done, the guy's not making a profit. He really isn't. I don't think so. I mean, it's wear and tear in your VCR. And I'm sure it's not like he's not like running a full-on distribution factory out there. And so all these years, I'm like, oh my gosh, running, he's, had to pay for this tape. To me, quite frankly, it seems quite reasonable. And I wish I would have bought more. But the thing is that Vengeance on Varos showed up, and I was like, I can't wait, I can't believe this is so awesome. And I stick it into the VCR only to find it's a camera copy. And so, at this point especially, I was like really trying to get away from camera copies, getting them and whatever else. But like I got the Ice Warriors as a camera copy the first time I got that. This is a camera copy. Sometimes you can't avoid it. But that being said, it was like how interesting to finally have this. But the camera copy wasn't of great quality. And so at the time I was kind of like, so I'm paying $10 for a camera copy. And I think that may be what stung, but looking at this, wasn't that. Now there's one thing that I remember very much so, is that J&T, in the book that he had written called The TARDIS Inside Out, which is him talking about working with all the actors that played Doctor Who, as well as illustrations and paintings by Andrew Skilleter. I remember him talking about the fact that they just finished Vengeance on Varos, that he really liked it. So I pulled out my copy from billions of years ago, only to open it up and find that there's an autograph from Richard Franklin. Like, oh wow, how interesting. So I go to the bit that's about Colin Baker to see if he actually did bring up Varos in it. And then there's autographs from Colin Baker and Nicola Bryant. And I have zero recollection of this ever happening. It had to been at a Visions convention. It had to be early on because I wasn't really one to stand in line for autographs. Now remember, at this time, autographs were part of the price to get into the convention, if you could believe it. You didn't have to pay, extra for it. Now, obviously, the part about that is that it works out well for the artists. They get some extra money. But this was really interesting. And so, first of all, yes, he does bring it up. Let's see here. He says to select a favorite story of mine to demonstrate Colin's Doctor is quite difficult due to lack of choice. At the time of writing, Colin only has completed 7 stories. Nevertheless, a choice must be made, and so let it be Vengeance on Varos, an excellently bizarre story by Philip Martin featuring a superb monster Syl and some extremely witty dialogue. Here's to Colin's appearance and many such stories as this. That's at the time. I don't know if his opinion ever changed, to be honest, after even season 23. But I find it very interesting, and I find it also interesting, these autographs as well. Now, the whole reason why I decided to do Vengeance on Varos this time is simply down to this. This was because I had watched this back in November of 2025 as sort of a tribute to Nabil Shaban. And it reminded me of 2018, being in the UK, in London, helping out at a Missing Believed Wiped that Kaleidoscope was working on, and we were at the BFI, and the event was over, and I was lagged behind, and I was going to leave the BFI and walk down the street to the Pizza Express that was just nearby. I'm walking, and there in one of the common seating areas off to the side was Nabil with a bunch of young people sitting around him on couches and stuff, and they are hanging on his every word. They're watching him. To me, it's very clear that it was some sort of, whether it's impromptu or something that he did there regularly or whatever else, it was some kind of, class. And I walked by and I immediately recognized him, and I thought to myself, I should just say hi and say that I'm a fan of his work. And I didn't, and I don't regret this. I do not, even now I don't regret that, even if he's passed. Because he was doing his job. He was doing his craft. And he was holding court in that room at that time. And to take my own selfishness and put it in front of that would have been really kind of crappy, I think. And it would have been, even though he's so good in everything he's done, I just felt like that would have been excessive, and quite frankly, it seemed like kind of an American thing to do. So I'm glad I didn't do it, because he was in his element. You could see that, and there was a number of people there, and I remember that they're like young students. They looked like young students to me that were just hanging on his every word. And that, when I remembered that, I thought, you know what? I think this is a good time to talk about this video. Now, the Radio Times doesn't really have anything to say about anything special about the story. They include the listings for the 2 episodes. What they also start talking about is some of the violence that is creeping into the program, and viewers are wondering, why is this happening? What has happened to their show? Now, once again, there isn't anything, because of this being from the 80s and whatnot, there isn't really anything that's missing. The story exists. And because Ian got copies of all these 71 edits, those had been preserved, and he had made them available for the DVD releases and stuff, but also you have that 1-inch 90-minute master tape. Now, just so you know, anything that the BBC had regarding these stories that outside of the broadcast masters had been erased. But before they were erased, they were all recorded and converted to digital Betacam, and they belong with BBC Enterprises now, because BBC Enterprises made sure that anything that wasn't the episodes themselves, that they had copies and had access to, because they knew that they're going to need them for the DVDs and whatnot. And like the 1-inch tape, the spool, that's all been wiped now, but there's a digital copy that exists. And also, I remember there was a time that all the 2-inch masters were donated for the Doctor Who episodes. All the master tapes were donated to the BFI. And I don't know if the BFI kept them or not, because there's been a lot of clones made of the episodes over time. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, going back to a 2-inch master tape is not even a thing that they need to do any longer, because they have digital recordings back from when they did the DVDs, and those are the basis for the up-res for the collection sets. If I'm not mistaken, it's generally, some are ground-up restorations, especially stuff on film, for example, like Dalek Invasion of Earth, but other episodes, which I would guess perhaps Vengeance on Varos would be a story like that, they're going to take the last restoration that they did of the story and then up-res it and do any more restoration that they need to do to it. So you're ended up, not needing the master tapes anyway anymore. They are basically redundant. Now let's go and take a look at what DWM had to say about Vengeance on Varos when it was, was about to come out. Now, in DWM 191, it's kind of interesting because both DWM and DWB, they had some high hopes for the 30th anniversary year of videos. And don't get me wrong, how it came out I think was still pretty good, but this at the time, this also included, even DWM was saying that 10th Planet was going to get a release in 93, and also a lot of orphaned episodes were going to be released, like The Reign of Terror, and then there's going to be some special releases as well, such as Resistance is Useless, and maybe some kind of 30th anniversary special video. So that was always, what people were hoping was a Dark Dimension. That was always kind of on the schedule. And so was Vengeance on Varos. Vengeance on Varos seemed to be, when they started talking about the 30th anniversary lineup, that Vengeance on Varos was indeed always on there. Now we take a look at DWM 195, and that says, just a mention of Vengeance on Varos being on the schedule, but more wondering about a 30th anniversary video to feature all 7 Doctors. Also, DWM mentioning that there has been no word on some of the orphan episode releases that they had talked about in issue 191. Now we jump over to DWM 200, which says that you can have your chance to win 1 of 5 copies to give away of the video. Some of the questions on the form are actually decent questions. It's not some of the sweepstakes for video giveaways later in the run. They're pretty simple. Maybe they got word that some people are like, these are too hard. They're not hard, but at the time you didn't have an internet to look everything up as well, so you may not know every story that Martin Jarvis has been in for Doctor Who, which, by the way, would be Web Planet, would be Invasion of the Dinosaurs, and Vengeance on Varos. Just in case you're wondering. Before we talk about how DWB had kind of listed about Vengeance on Varos on VHS, something that I had completely forgot about that I think was kind of fun back in the day. In DWB 23, when season 22 was airing, Judith Bailey would make video covers that would show up in the magazine. And here's the one for Vengeance on Varos. So basically, if you are recording the stories and you want to create a video cover for your story, she created one for you. And they are obviously very simplistic. But also, I find it very interesting, too, that she's going under the assumption that people are recording one story per tape. And I can't imagine that was very cheap back in the day for you in 1985 to buy a VHS and record one story at the fastest speed so that you can have the best quality. Very interesting. I wonder how many people actually printed those out and made video covers based on her designs. It's once again one of the things that makes DWB so charming that they did that. Now we jump over to issue 111 of DWB. So not much in the issue, but it does mention, as it has been mentioning, that it's a May release for Vengeance on Varos. We move to DWB 112. It shows the cover for Vengeance on Varos. It's the first time we see it. And then it says the first of the 30th anniversary videos to be released. But what they're saying by that, if they're going off of the logo, the 30th anniversary logo here, that's not quite true. And it's interesting because I think the first one is actually Terror of the Autons that uses this logo. And then the next release is Silver Nemesis, which actually uses the diamond logo. And then we go to this release, and this has the 30th anniversary logo as well. And so I'm not sure if they're meaning the 30th anniversary release as Terror of the Autons being something special, Silver Nemesis being something special, and really just this being a story that has just the episodes as broadcast. I'm not quite sure what they mean. I found that was a very interesting thing to say. Now we go to issue DWB 113, and in that issue you have a review of the story Vengeance on Varos, because this just came out. It says this about Vengeance on Varos. It says Dave Owen says it needs about 2 more rewrites to get it in shape. Drop Syl, an unnecessary gimmick. Drop Syl? Syl is the story. Syl is what makes the story interesting. What do you mean, drop Syl? It's so funny because Doctor Who is about unique aliens. And Syl is probably one of the best realized, most charismatic, biggest personality alien. He's not a monster. He's an alien. And yet, drop Syl. Did you not like Davros and Genesis of the Daleks? Should we have removed the Cybermen in Attack of the Cybermen? Do you not like the Master? And, well, you could probably remove him from a bunch of stories. But Drop Syl is probably one of the funniest things I've ever read. Does he still think that? It's like, it almost feels like that anyone who wrote for DWB at this stage had like a mandate that you have to slag off everything from the JNT era. I don't know. Maybe, what do you all think? Do you think that Syl was unnecessary in Vengeance on Varos? I don't know. I think he's kind of necessary. So let's take a look at the cover for Vengeance on Varos. This is a cover that is painted by Andrew Skilleter. Looks very Andrew Skilleter-ish to me. And it's fine. Here's the thing. And I hope you don't get mad at me. I hope Andrew Skilleter, if by chance you see this, you don't get mad at me. I remember in the 80s thinking that Andrew Skilleter was one of the greatest artists of all time. And he's a very talented person. And one of my first exhibit, first of all, is to kind of prove this, is of all things what we were just talking about, the TARDIS Inside Out. There are some images in here that are just absolutely stunning. All the Cybermen stuff is amazing. I'm going to be honest, though, what has always captivated me has been this portrait that he had created for Colin Baker. I have studied this over the years. I mean, especially when I first got this, I would look at this and be like, everything else is a painting. This has to be a real picture. This is just incredible. I think this is such a wonderful, wonderful piece of art. I think this is fantastic. And I think so much that's in this book in particular is truly stunning artwork. That being said, and I say this as I could not do any better, I've always felt a lot of the Andrew Skilleter covers kind of have fallen flat for VHS. Like, there's also been a number of Target novelizations back in the 80s that were, once again, absolutely stunning, beautiful, just wonderful works of art by Andrew Skilleter. And for some reason, I've always felt that these VHS covers were less dynamic from him. And that includes, the likeness of the actors in a lot of cases, not all, in a lot. That doesn't mean he hadn't had good art, but this is a great example of it where Syl looks pretty good. Colin, I don't think, looks that great in it, and then Jason Connery in this. I mean, it looks like it's actually, and I know it's meant to be like he's on a TV screen, but it almost looks like it's actually drawn by a different artist altogether. Maybe I'm being too tough on it, but it just isn't super dynamic. And, that's just where I'm at with that. And I think, once again, the VHS and certainly the Blue Spine Target books, those were, even though there were other artists in them, those were owned by Alistair Pearson, in my opinion. So, since this is what I do, I talk about what I dislike about the releases. I don't dislike it, but also since I'm not a massive fan of the story, that clouds me here as well, but this isn't super, great. The back of this release, is just a classic back that you get on all of the VHSs at the time. That's totally fine. Now, my release here, take out the tape. It's a genuine BBC product, but as you'll notice, it has a newer BBC logo at the top, so this had to have been a reissue. And kind of like I showed from which would have been the release prior to this, which would be the extended version of Silver Nemesis, my version doesn't have anything on the inside, where I know that there was advertisements on the inside for other videos to get. Now, what I think is also very interesting, remember earlier on when I was talking about PBS, talking about KTCA, and showing the power of Doctor Who being on PBS at the time, I kind of feel like the same thing was kind of happening here on the VHS releases, and that is this. And on Vengeance on Varos, on the original release, if you open this up, you could have open it up again. I don't think it's the full length, but there was an opportunity to win a trip to Chicago, and also other things you can win as well. So you could win 2 tickets to Chicago to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Doctor Who's transmission. We are giving you the opportunity to win a first prize of 2 tickets to attend the Visions 1993 Doctor Who convention in Chicago. USA between the 26th and 28th of November. So this is incredible. If you won this, what you would get is return airfare tickets for 2 people. This is first prize. Accommodation for 1 week in Chicago. Convention is 3 days. You get a full week in Chicago. Entrance tickets for all the convention events, including the convention dinner. And what blows me away, you have all that, and then it's offering you £500 spending money. That's insane. What a great prize for those who had the opportunity for the Doctor Who VHS range. I mean, I think that's incredible. And then second prize, in my opinion, is just as wonderful. One of every Doctor Who title ever released by BBC Video. I'd be down for that. That would be really fun. There's 5 third prizes. One of every Doctor Who title released during the 30th anniversary year. And that alone is also very cool. Now, this is where, you have to kind of pay to enter, so to speak. What you have to do is simply collect 10 different tokens from Doctor Who videos, merchandise, magazines, and exhibitions throughout the country during this anniversary year. Then stick them onto the back of a postcard with your name, address, and telephone number, and the holiday could be yours. So obviously you could win this, but you would probably spend, I don't know, maybe £150 to be able to have the opportunity. Something like that, right? Maybe less, I guess. But still, I mean, if you're going to buy the stuff anyway, especially like the Doctor Who videos, why not? Did any of you win this? Did any of you win any of this? Because I would love to know. I would love to know. Did I run into you at Visions one year in 1993, and I didn't know that you were a winner. That's really cool. If you won, put it in the comments. I'd love to know. I'd actually love to do a video about you to kind of document what that was like. That's kind of cool, actually. Now, there was no restoration work done on the VHS release at all. It's uncut, but at that time, and I've said about the trial video. I mean, taken off the shelf. I mean, it wasn't even 10 years old yet, so it was considered to be just fine. Now, other versions of this release over time, we got back in 2001, we got one of the early DVD releases was Vengeance on Varos. And this, being back in the day, had the crappy montage covers before Clayton came on board. And once again, using the wrong fonts here and whatever else, which is fine. But the problem was with this is that the production subtitles for Part 2 were somehow missed off when authoring this disc. So on the restoration team forum at the time, you could download a document and read along, I guess, with the production subtitles, which it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. This is very, very early on in the Doctor Who DVD releases. But in 2012, what we got is a special edition to Vengeance on Varos. They were doing the revisitation sets. This was separate, and it was also 2 discs at this point. It's interesting how technology kind of moves along. Back in 2001, you couldn't print imagery like this onto a disc, and here we are 11 years later, and it's a 2-disc set, and it's also Amaray cases that are no thicker than a regular DVD release, but back in the early 2000s, they were a bit thicker. And I actually thought that the Curse of Fenric DVD was going to be on a thicker case like this. But what I didn't know about this was this wasn't really being planned to get a release. Now, I don't know if this was true or not, but I was under the impression that for the longest time, maybe for the entire time, that the original 2001 Vengeance on Varos DVD release was the poorest selling of all the DVD releases by some big number, was my understanding. Is that true or not? Because Dan Hall in issue 430 of DWM says this. Dan Hall states that if there was enough support, he would reconsider having a special edition to Vengeance on Varos. He said to use the hashtag #ReleaseVaros on Twitter to show support for its re-release. I don't remember that, but whatever. But must have worked because, or he just wanted to see if people were going to do it or not, because it did come out eventually, and it's a great release. This is really good. The episodes look really good on it, and there's some really nice extras. And part of it too is it was very clear that all those releases that were early on needed to get the treatment of what eventually became standard for the DVD releases, and this is a nice release. I enjoy it. It's time to look at the different qualities of releases, and at first I was just going to do like 3. I think what I want to do, and I think I just want to do 3, and what I want to do is not include the special edition. I want to take a look at the VHS. I want to look at the original DVD release for Varos. And then, of course, we know that Season 22 was released on Blu-ray. Let's take a look at all of them and see how far we've come.
Who are other people helping rebels? If he should be of another mining corporation, our contracts are ended.
No, he is unknown to us.
I would wish them dead. Only that would please my company.
Close them out, Chief. Use every guard available. I'll talk to the people. Arrange it quickly.
What about this?
Oh, keep trying to open it.
Well, that's fun. Now, remember, folks, if I got anything wrong, or if you want to share your story or elaborate on anything I said tonight, please send me an email or put it in the comments on YouTube. And don't forget, please, to like and subscribe to my channel. I would appreciate it. Also, once again, please consider joining my Patreon. My Patreon really helps me get some of the stuff that helps make these videos. And that includes even stuff like this, which, do I really need this in my collection? Yeah, I do, but still, this helps me with it as well. In fact, I would like to thank right now my friends who do support me, and here they are. In fact, if you've joined my Patreon, you will have known what my schedule is for the first part of this year to release these wonderful videos. I am very excited for the schedule for this year, and that's not just Doctor Who videos, that's other videos from other television shows that I want to talk about as well. So it's going to be a great year. There's going to be a lot of, I think, great content coming out, and I appreciate all of you as we go through this journey of the shelves behind me, and we look at some of these most amazing releases of Doctor Who.
And there are more space adventures on these BBC videos.